you had just lost your 36th close friend, not just acquaintance, close friend.
He said, yeah, I even put I think it was a 44 Magnum in his mouth and couldn't pull the trigger. And so I immediately asked him, was it wrong that you put a 44 Magnum in your mouth? But, 22 vets a day die. Now it's up to 40.
Yeah.
Right now, as we speak and sit here, it's up to 40. Well, why is it up to 40? The global war on terror in 25-ish years now, I guess, is somewhere around 92 or 9,300. And don't quote me on exactly that number, but it's over 9,000. That's not that bad. But then you add the suicide numbers. Apparently, like 2 months ago, it peaked 140,000 GWOT veterans.
When we were downstairs, we had a discussion about veteran suicide, and you had just lost your 36th close friend, not just acquaintance, close friend. And I've lost, I quit counting. I don't want to know the number, but I just wanted to open the floor for you on that because it sounds like it's pretty fresh. And
I told myself the same thing at one point: is stop counting. Let's just stop paying attention to it. And it was really hard to stop paying attention to it. When you get that call in the middle of the night or an email or text next day, hey, bro, you know what happened? And so instead of running away from it, which I think I did for a long time in the very beginning, because I'm sure we'll get into it more, but I did not know how to deal with loss. I didn't know what it was. I didn't know how to define it. And I started, instead of running away from it, diving into it and saying, how can I maybe do something to prevent this from happening more? And you're not going to stop it, right? It's not going to stop, but we've got to change the message somehow, some way, and help people reframe the situation that's in their life, the circumstances that's happening to them at this point in time, as they may not understand them. I mean, I've had my dark moments where I get reckless in the past. I've, knock on wood, I've never had suicidal, like I'm going to go do this right now. And so maybe I'm blessed, or maybe I'm not blessed. Maybe some people have had those situations in their life. And even that, I had a friend last night call me, and he was on the edge, and he's having bad anxiety, panic attacks. And then he said, yeah, I even put I think it was a 44 Magnum in his mouth and couldn't pull the trigger. And so I immediately asked him, was it wrong that you put a 44 Magnum in your mouth? And it's like, yeah, moment of silence. And he's like, I said, think about the answer before you say it. When was that? He said, a while back. I said, was it wrong that you did that? Because we're still having a conversation right now. And he says, no. I said, say it again. And so we worked through it from a mind architect standpoint to start to understand the meaning of an event, a decision that you might make, or a word that you might say that's incorrect. Like, look at depression. Everybody's depressed nowadays. Well, maybe you're not depressed. And maybe the best way to solve a problem is to identify there isn't one in the first place. Every time we want alone time, or we want to off gas, or I just need to get away from it all, man, I've got these anxieties and problems, I think that you could look at it as a word. A lot of experts are now starting to talk about this more. It's a compression state that you want to go into, to compress myself, to off gas the chaos and corruption of my day or my experience that I had. It's not, but you'll label it as depression versus compression. So if we can just maybe identify and define the words more that we use, the spelling, right? That's why they call them spells, because you're casting a spell every time you say, I'm depressed. Are you? Or you just need some compression time because you need that time. And I think we don't understand that. And so we just get more depressed and more anxiety comes on. And then next thing you know, I'm like, I want to end it all. I don't want to be here anymore. And next thing you know, we're creating organizations of trying to stop suicide. And I've even talked to the guys a long time ago. I haven't talked to anybody recently at Mission 22. But 22 vets a day die. Now it's up to 40.
Yeah.
Right now, as we speak and sit here, it's up to 40. Well, why is it up to 40? Maybe we're reminding them that it's okay to commit suicide instead of saying it's not okay. How about rebrand your company? I said this one time. They said rebrand it next year as Mission 21, and then Mission 20, and then Mission 19, and they were like, they laughed at that. But so if anybody hears that now, I think that's a good idea, is to talk about how do we get rid of it, not just acknowledge it exists. And that's what I'm trying to do the best I can.
I'm curious. Did you struggle with? We're not going to get into this full blown now. We'll wait till the appropriate time. But I am curious. Did you struggle with drugs or alcohol or both?
No.
No.
Luckily, I've never done that. Never dealt with it.
I think that with the veteran suicide stuff, I think of a lot of that. I know a lot of that is coming from shitty decision making under the influence of drugs and alcohol.
Yeah.
And I mean, you know how long it takes to pull a trigger, a fraction of a second. And you can have that thought, with not a clear mind, and all it takes is a fraction of a second to pull that trigger or swallow those pills or drive off the road or jump off a building or, and I think I know that's what's getting a lot of guys is
Suppression.
not having a clear mind and under the influence of drugs and alcohol. And, it's not that cures everything. You know what I mean? I don't think coming off of it is going to cure depression and all these other things, but I think the majority of these seem to happen when somebody's under the influence and they're not in the right state of mind. And maybe that's one of the things that we need to be spending a little bit more time on to get to the real root of the problem, which is the suicide is what we're trying to get, to clean up, to stop. But I don't think that's going to stop until the drugs and the alcohol stop. And you had brought up another statistic this morning, Travis, that you had said, you have the numbers, I don't, but you had mentioned, and I knew this, how many people died in OIF and OEF?
Yeah, the global war on terror in 25-ish years now, I guess, is somewhere around 92 or 9,300. And don't quote me on exactly that number, but it's over 9,000. Okay, if we look back to Vietnam and Korea and World War II, we know what the numbers were there, right? You had 45,000, 52,000, and then World War II was 400 plus thousand men died. Okay, damn, that's pretty good. Global war on terror in 25 years. We've only lost it sounds shitty to say it like this, but we've only lost 9,000 plus people. Okay, technology, better medical facilities. I mean, we can get air medevaced, very quickly nowadays. So people would say, well, that's not that bad. But then you add the suicide numbers, which we're starting to see a lot of numbers come out, and I'm going to fact check them. Apparently 2 months ago, it peaked 140,000 GWOT veterans in 25 years, whether you serve somewhere in that time frame, have committed suicide. So in theory, our actual death toll of the war, again, not everything is combat related. It could have been some family issue, childhood trauma, something like that, drugs, whatever, that influenced that decision, but they still are considered the GWOT number. That's why I'm kind of fact checking the number itself. Mm-hmm. Is it actually, it could be 140, but how many are actually combat related? Hey, I can't handle the trauma and the nightmares anymore kind of thing. You'll never figure that out. But if that number is true of suicides alone in the last 25 years, that means that we're almost at 150,000 dead in this war on terror. And if I can personally say I know 36 of them that are good friends of mine, maybe that's true. And that makes me want to fight harder. I just want to rephrase. I think it is drugs and alcohol. I don't think that is the only problem. I think when all of this, operator syndrome, PTSD, traumatic brain injury, CTE, and it all gets compiled together, and you add drugs and alcohol on top of it, which is obviously people think it's a coping mechanism. I think that's what I was alluding to is it I think that's
the icing on the cake. No matter where you're watching Shawn Ryan Show from, if you get anything out of this, please like, comment, subscribe, and most importantly, share this everywhere you possibly can. And if you're feeling extra generous, please leave us a review on Apple and Spotify podcasts.